This is the Good Fire Podcast. Stories of Indigenous fire stewardship, cultural and social empowerment, and environmental integrity. We're back.
Wow, we're back.
What's happening? We're going to be talking about all kinds of new Indigenous cultural burning stuff this season. Season 2 is on its way, and Amy's got a bunch of people lined up. Really excited to talk and to learn more again. I learned a bunch last season. I'm sure a lot of you did as well. And so what do you got, Amy? What's happening? What are we going to be talking to, or who are we going to be talking to, and what are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, we have a lot of great guests lined up for season 2 coming up here. We're going to be talking about the Australian bushfires and how they impacted Indigenous people and recovery. Hopefully we can actually get to some other continents this season too, besides just the main ones that we talked about last time, maybe Africa, other countries where Indigenous burning also happens, but, don't get as much of the spotlight. And another thing we're going to be having some special episodes on is on a survey that we did with Indigenous wildland firefighters in Canada, what it's like for them on the job, what are issues that they run into, is it a culturally safe workspace? So yeah, I'm really excited to bring on that team. It's an all Indigenous team of researchers and firefighters. So yeah, it should be really exciting to chat about that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of it. It's such a treat for me, who's being someone that's not in that world of cultural burning or fire, really, even, to be honest, right? It's such a treat for me to step into that world a little bit and get some of this insight, and it really helps elevate my understanding and my perspective on fire and our relationship with it, right? I'm looking forward to all of this. So I know something that a couple things that I really appreciated from the previous season was just learning, to me, like as a non-Indigenous person, the total impact of colonization globally, and how all the issues that came up and all of the people we talked to from around the globe were so similar. Right. It was the colonial government that caused, that made this difficult or reduced our ability to burn here or do that and do this. And it was all very connected, even though they're on different sides of the planet. And I just found that incredibly, when I think about it now, it's obvious, right? Colonization, like that was what created that. But it didn't really click in for me until we got closer to the end of the season. And then also, tying into that was also the idea of Indigenous-led fire management, right? That concept, to me, I'd never even considered, right? It wasn't a realization until I got the chance to do season 1, and it was a cool idea, but then also, again, running into those same roadblocks in every colonial government with how do we do this? How do you build the trust or whatever, however you want to word it in the system that, like, hey, Indigenous people know how to do this, because it's just, it seems like there's just always running into that problem. Right. So, it was disheartening to hear that that's the truth of it, but it's also exciting to hear that there are strides being made, and we're able to have conversations like this and to see the effect that it's having and the positivity that's coming out of it. So yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of this next season. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, I learned one really cool term this year, that wasn't really on my radar when we first started filming, but it was actually from my colleague Faisal Mullah, and he's at the University of Guelph, and he was telling me about how, that removing fire from Indigenous people has basically been an activity of cultural severance. So this idea that you're just completely suddenly severing an important tie that people had to their environment and to their relationship. So not only are you disconnecting that relationship or that responsibility to manage and to steward the forest, but it's also a reflection on, how you feel as a person. So, when you have that going on, and then you have residential schools and other things that were completely treating individual people and Indigenous knowledge as lesser than, it has an impact on people, not only, from a fire management standpoint, but also just on how you feel about yourself, about your culture and other things. And just, yeah. So for me, that really put it into like a good term was like this cultural severance. Like it's a dramatic term, but I think it's very accurate. And what I've been actually thinking about now, with this podcast and all the good things that I see happening on the ground is we're really trying like for almost a reunion with fire, where we're trying to, reunite Indigenous people with that really important part of ourselves. And people just always say to me, or like they act like it's, just about fire, but I'm always trying to say like, it's not just fire. It's not just burning. Like that's, an important part, but it's also just valuing like our ancestors and that knowledge that we had from before. So I think, for me, like the season 1 was a great, opportunity to reflect and to chat with a bunch of my colleagues, who I value their opinions so much. And yeah, we received, I think, such good feedback from folks who really learned a lot about burning. Even a lot of Indigenous peoples have reached out to me and said, oh, it was so great to hear like, what I'm seeing in my community, but actually in kind of more of a public setting. And so, I'm hoping with this season too, we can really dig deep into some of the issues. Like I find there's such a romanticism with cultural burning. Like people are really like, oh, wow, Indigenous people, like, in quotations, used to burn on the landscape. But I'm finding right now that we're just really not addressing some of the hard issues that we need to in order to get fire back. So, some of those are just really hard issues about like land back. Like, yeah, it's great to say Indigenous people should burn and want to burn, but in Canada, we literally have a little land base. So like, what are we going to burn and how are we going to do it? And, we need to be able to have responsibility for other pieces of land as well in our territories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that concept of cultural severance is a powerful one. I like that a lot. I've recently had a lot of discussions. I mean, with the finding of all of these Indigenous children's bodies through all these residential schools here in Canada. For those listening abroad, I'm not sure if you're aware, but it's maybe Amy, you want to talk about that a little bit. But they've been finding bodies of unmarked graves of Indigenous children that died during residential schools here, and thousands of them now are being uncovered. And so I've been having lots of discussions with friends of mine about this issue, and it ties in perfectly with that. The cultural burning being torn from them is another type of cultural severance, right? How would you relate it to non-Indigenous people? What would it be like say I'm not sure if you want to talk about it, maybe people who are very religious. Would it be fair to say it's like saying tearing away the church and saying we'll put you in prison if you go to church kind of thing? Or how would you word it in a way that people who are non-Indigenous can understand what that would be like?
Yeah, it was such just a violent act, and I think it's hard for us now to imagine what it would be like, but it would be kind of be like waking up one morning, you're kind of in your house, in your community, and all of a sudden, someone comes, knocks on the door, and under like gunpoint takes away your children, and you don't know where they've gone, what they're doing. And then, so you're heartbroken about that. Then you go to practice your cultural activities on the land. Oh, well, you can't do that. We're moving you to a reserve, and you can't leave your reserve unless you have a pass, and you can't use fire in the way that you used to, or you're going to go to jail. So it was just all of these things, I think that piled up. And for me too, it just shows the resilience of our nations, like, that we're still here and still
Absolutely.
going and still trying. But sometimes I just wish that we didn't have to be resilient against these systems, like that we could just be and not have to constantly prove, how we can survive through so much unjust acts on our communities. So yeah, I think that that's kind of the best way that I would describe kind of that cultural severance and what happened. And so that's to me the importance of, fire and just it's just one step, I think, to kind of recognizing, I think, wrongs that were done, but also how we can make things right. And not only for our communities, but what we're seeing with all these massive fire events too across Canada and the US and Australia, especially is that, we're basically not managing the land right. Like it's just, there's something wrong with like the forest when you're getting these massive fires. And so with climate change, the accumulation of fuel, there's, we need to kind of invite other voices, I think, into this arena.
Absolutely. No, it totally makes sense. Right. Yeah. It's, I'm excited to get into these conversations again. It definitely, like you said, it provided me a lot of time to reflect, and re-listening to the last season, I had a lot of reflections on a lot that happened, but a lot of it was on things that I clearly missed while recording. I thought that was interesting. I don't have examples at the moment per se, but I just remember having these little epiphanies like, what are you talking about, Christoph? That's not what they're talking about. Shut up. I just totally missed the point of something. And so I'm excited for a second opportunity to engage and reflect and try to be empathetic and learn from other people's experiences. So season 2 is going to be cool. It's going to be exciting.
Well, and that's the importance too, I think, of having allies in this, because, as Indigenous people, we're not just on the landscape alone anymore, right? We share it now with other people, whether some people don't like it, but it's kind of, what we have to do at the moment. And there is really good allies there that are trying to, help push Indigenous people and fire leadership to the front. So I think it's really important too to, get your perception too as we go through this and see, how, because some of the things that are talked about can almost be extreme, coming from somebody like yourself who's trained in forestry and kind of that more European style of land management. So it's been interesting. We've had some great feedback on the show. I think that's to me been the most encouraging. I never thought we'd be doing a season 2. But we've had so many people just listening to it. And so I really thank everybody who's kind of reached out to us and let us know, what they thought. For me, I was saying to Matt before that I've had a lot of Indigenous students especially reaching out to me, and it's just been awesome to be able to see so many Indigenous students getting interested in fire. And that's the kind of shift that we need to see, is having more of our youth in this area.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm glad to hear that kind of stuff. It's cool to see the impact that the podcast has had, right? I'm excited about it. And I'm excited that you're excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. And so I think too, like it's, for me, I think I always talk about one of the biggest barriers to, getting cultural burning back is just this lack of understanding of what burning even is. And so to be able to have like a podcast, I think it reaches a lot of people in kind of an accessible way, not like an academic paper or something that, maybe you spend a lot of time on and 10 people read. So I think that it's in these kind of conversations that we can really, make a difference in just how people even look at fire events.
Absolutely. It's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. So I think when do you think we'll be getting this out? Like, I mean, we haven't even recorded at the time of this teaser, we haven't recorded anything. So, but we have a lot planned, and there's a lot of opportunity. We know we're recording stuff, but I think it's probably going to be early 2022 before the season actually comes out. But I think maybe in the interim, we'll be able to release a couple of teasers of some conversations as we go along, just to make sure people, keep interested and know that it's still coming. Don't forget about it.
For sure. Yeah,
so we'll plan that.
Yeah, 2022, I think is, what I think as well. I mean, with COVID and we're both parents of young kids. So I think everybody knows what that's been like the last year, and trying, to put your family first and career and all of that other stuff. So I think that's the plan, is 2022 recording kind of this summer and fall. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of fire events at the moment that are really taking up a lot of time. And I think, I know, Matt, you as well, just want to offer our condolences as well to the people of Lytton in Canada. That for those of you maybe who don't know, their community was impacted. Their community was impacted in early July by a wildfire that burned into their community very suddenly, and it was a sudden evacuation. And unfortunately, there were some fatalities So yeah, just, I think we'd like to offer our condolences to them and to the family that lost, the people in the fire. And I mean, that's why we're trying to do, to change forest management, I guess, and fire management, is so that we don't have to see these types of events in the future that are just so impactful to people. And I mean, even as we're recording this, Matt, across Canada, there's thousands of people that are evacuated right now because of fires. So it's definitely a worrisome situation.
Yeah, no, of course it is. It's just, it's terrible, right? And it's just so, how unprecedented is it from your perspective, as you're like, this is your world, right? To have, over the last 10 years or so many evacuations and towns being burnt and that kind of thing. Is this, in history, is this pretty unprecedented in Canada for it to be this concentrated?
Yeah, we've had big events in Canada before, like, the Miramichi fire in New Brunswick, like around the 19th century, I think, that killed a lot of people. And so we've had, fire events, but they stand out because they were kind of one-offs almost. Whereas what we're seeing now is just that, we had Kelowna, which everybody thought in 2003 was just kind of a one-time event. And then Slave Lake, Fort McMurray, then multiple communities in BC and Saskatchewan that have been impacted over the last few years. So yeah, unfortunately, I think the scientific models show that we are seeing increased impact, and with climate change, we'll see really increasing impact as we move forward. So my colleague Sandy Yerney and her team looked at forest fire return intervals, basically. So how often in the future communities are going to be impacted by fire. And they found that frequency is actually going to increase substantially, and actually even increase more for Indigenous communities. So for reserves. So yeah, really worrying. And in a personal opinion, I grew up in the North, and we didn't, I remember fires growing up, but I don't really remember being scared of them, or, having your summer in smoke and other things. Whereas now, I can't even remember the last summer in Alberta in the last 5 years that we haven't been smoked out. It's just been, it's definitely been, worrying, I would say.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's my understanding as well, right? Is that it's only going to get worse if we don't do something. So now's the time. Now's the time for more cultural burning, more burning on the landscape, controlled burning, that people can, we can achieve things that we want to, and also hold up Indigenous communities and allow them to practice their culture and regain their autonomy and sovereignty at the same time. So now's the time.
Yeah. I think when people too think, I know for me, when I think climate change, it's so overwhelming, oh my goodness, what can we do? It's just almost scary. But I try to focus, on cultural burning and Indigenous sovereignty and other things, because I think that that's a really good place to start in addressing the climate crisis. And so, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's communities out there trying to get fire back on their landscape, really having the good fight. And just another thing I just wanted to mention too is, since we recorded, we actually have come out with what we call the Indigenous Fire Smart booklet, but it's called Blazing the Trail, Celebrating Indigenous Fire Stewardship. And it's a Fire Smart Canada product. So you can find it on their website, firesmartcanada.ca. But it tells the story of, I think there's 12 different stories in there of Indigenous nations who are either bringing back fire or, have specialized firefighting resources. And it also talks about, that dichotomy of good fire, bad fire, and what communities can do, to be, I guess, fire smart or fire resilient. So just something for people, if you're interested in this topic, to check out that book as well. It was written by an all Indigenous team. It was peer reviewed by an all Indigenous peer review team. And it's full of Indigenous art from Indigenous artists that we paid, which is always nice to be able to pay people. And then an Indigenous graphic designer, Indigenous copy editor. So it's really a special product. So I hope people check it out.
I'll throw the link in the show notes for that.
Okay,
so people
perfect.
So if they go wherever they're accessing this episode from, this trailer, I suppose, they can click the link, and that Blazing the Trail will be right there. So
awesome.
yeah, I look forward to it. I hope you guys do too. And we'll see you in about 6 months or so.
It'll go fast.
It'll go fast.
Yeah.
We'll drop a few extra links, like I said, in the interim. I don't know when, I don't know what they'll be, but we'll keep you updated.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Amy.
Talk to everyone soon.
A huge thank you to Canada Wildfire for their support of this podcast. As well, we would like to thank the Fighting Gunda Jamara for allowing us to share their fire song Ween as the official song of Good Fire Podcast.